Assalamu alaikum. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Connections with Aisha Yuki. My name is Aisha, and I am very excited and happy to host today a friend of mine, Salman Bhojani. Welcome to the show, Salman.
Thank you, Aisha, for having me.
Absolutely. So, for those of you who do not know Salman, I would like to first introduce him. Born in Pakistan to a large family, Salman's parents immigrated to the Lone Star State when he was 14 years old. After becoming a naturalized citizen, Salman earned a bachelor's in science in business administration from the University of Texas at Dallas, UTD, and he became a small business owner, purchasing convenience stores across the DFW Metroplex. He went on to earn a law degree from SMU, Southern Methodist University, and a comparative law diploma from Oxford University, and eventually founded his own law firm, Bhojani Law PLLC. After finding a home in Euless, Texas with his young family, Salman continued to focus on his law practice and businesses. In 2018, Salman made national headlines when he was elected to the Euless City Council, becoming the first Muslim American to hold elected office in Euless, and he went on to become the Mayor Pro Tem. In March, Salman was elected Democratic nominee for House District 92 with over 57% of the vote. When Salman wins in November, he will be the first Muslim and the first South Asian and Pakistani ever elected to the Texas legislature. He will also be the first person of color ever elected to represent House District 92. Salman, it has been so amazing watching your campaign and just seeing how much you have basically been supported by the community, by Texans everywhere. And so I have a few questions for you. We want to just jump right in.
Sure.
So my first question for you is, many of us here became politically active after Trump's presidency, where being an immigrant in America was once again a cause for suspicion. How has your immigrant journey as a Pakistani American empowered you to run for the Texas House of Representatives?
Yeah, and that's a great question about the Trump presidency. And that's what actually motivated me to enter politics. After he got elected, the first thing he did was institute a Muslim ban from 15 Muslim countries. And that's when I thought that this is not the right, decision for America. Like, we've just elected somebody who really hates immigrants like me and my family, and for the faith that we believe in. And so that's when I ran for Euless City Council, and I was already voting, but I think that was not enough, right?
Yeah,
What Mahatma once said that, be the change that you want to see in the world. And
right.
I felt that I should be that change. And that's how I got started.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that, for immigrants, that period was really difficult for us. And so, what was it that you remember from that time that, that fueled you to really make that step from being just a voting member to, elected official? Was there anything, I know you mentioned the Muslim ban, but anything else that you recall?
Yeah, I just felt that if we don't have a seat at the table, then we'll be on the menu. And Muslims have been on the menu for far too long. And I just felt that we don't have the elected officials like other faith leaders do to have religious parity and just our values and ethics that we bring to this country.
Yeah.
Who's going to shape that policy if we're not going to have a seat at the table? And so that's when I thought that I need to shape the policy. And the politics starts at the local government. And that's when I decided to run for Euless City Council.
Yeah, excellent. So I think that takes me into the next question, which is, I really want to speak a little bit about your city council experience because I remember some of those stories. And so what challenges would you say that you faced? I know you faced so many, but if you had to think of a few challenges that you faced as being the first Muslim member of your city council, please share that with us.
Yeah, most of the challenges that I faced were during running for office. People really gave a lot of hateful and Islamophobic, speech to me. Basically, they're saying that go back to Pakistan. This is not your country. That you're a terrorist because you're Muslim, and all that kind of stuff. But I think what we tried to show a positive face of Islam and what we believe in, and that's what really people saw. But after getting elected, I'm luckily did not have a lot of challenges because I was working so hard for the city.
Yeah.
That people saw that this person really had the positive values in order to run for city council. And then he's contributing so much that we really can't look the other way. And that's how they elected me as a mayor pro tem for the city of Euless. I was the only minority and the only Democrat that's on the Euless City Council, and a 7 city council member board. And 6 of my colleagues were all Republican, elected me as a mayor pro tem in 2020.
That's amazing. I think the interesting part of it is that when we, saw President Obama's presidency, and we had so much hope, for the future of this country, that to see America go from something like that into what we experienced, I think that was also very shocking, almost. I think to the immigrants, I remember when Obama was elected, just watching that inauguration and just getting goosebumps, right, and chills. So I think that thanks to people of color that have put themselves forward in these elected roles, I think we've definitely felt that we can definitely do this. Because before him, it was like, I don't know if there's what the immigrants can do here. Um, so the next question I have for you is, despite all of this Islamophobic narrative that's been espoused by some politicians to gain an upper hand, you have mentioned time and again that you have a bipartisan approach, especially in local politics. So I want to understand better, how has that bipartisan approach helped you in your governance and helped you achieve success in your policy goals? So if there's some examples.
Yeah, so it's in the state of Texas, we have a lot of Republicans, and that's how the legislature is being controlled. Most of the city council is being controlled by that, and so as a Democrat, it's very difficult to get anything passed just by saying I'm going to only work with Democrats. And so
Right.
that's the approach. Especially being the only Democrat on the 7 city council member board, I had to reach across the aisle. But I think in a city, politics is not as much partisan.
Okay.
But I think it's about forming relationships with your counterparts and trying to show them that you're here for the people. There's
Mhm.
no ulterior motives. There's nothing that I'm trying to present one agenda that's not there. It's only for the people of Texas, people of Euless and people of Texas. And I just didn't fight for the Muslims in South Asian. I fought for the
Yeah.
entire Euless city, and that really helped them out see the light at the end of the tunnel. And some of the policy that I worked on was like starting a youth in government program that's for
Mm.
all the youth in junior and seniors in Euless, where
Mhm.
we would take them to a 9-week process and teach them what the city does for them, how to run for city council. And I actually
Oh,
taught
wow.
one of the classes there is how to be politically active and run for city council. And I talked about my story, and like, if I can do it being an immigrant working for $6 an hour before and now running on city council, anybody else can do it as well. So just give them a little bit more glimpse in that. I've also tried to do, represent small business owners during the pandemic. As you can imagine, there were a lot of clients of small business owners that were upset
Yeah.
in this area because of the mask mandates and whatnot. And so we went out and posted like a city of Euless flyers every door saying the city of Euless is requiring you to wear a mask, as opposed to the businesses, which would
Mm.
make them feel more like, okay, it's not us, it's the city, so they can blame us, but they can still get the business, right? So I knew that was an issue for small business owners that had clients that did not want to wear masks. So those initiatives that worked really well, plus the Tongan community and the Nepali community and Muslim community in Euless, we had a quarterly meeting with those community members, met them where they were at as opposed to our city council. And that helped quite a bit in building bridges and having conversations.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. That strategic foresight on, things that are thrown at you, and leadership under the pandemic was kind of its own just ball game, I would say. So that's a great example, and definitely, I mean, in local politics, ultimately, I think as Americans, everyone really wants basically the same thing, right? We came here, everyone here is an immigrant unless you're a Native American, right?
Yep.
And so that's very insightful. So speaking of being an immigrant, I have also often heard you credit your family for providing you the support that you need to be able to make this happen, right? To be able to put in the long, hard hours. What are some examples of sacrifices that maybe your parents and your wife and children have had to have had to make during the campaign?
Yeah, and the sacrifices. I think many people understand the candidates have to miss out on so much family time. So many like special moments with the kids and parents and spouses. So that sacrificing that family time is one of the biggest things that the family has helped with. But more directly, like Nima and my kids have knocked on doors for the campaign. They've actually, my daughter made a flyer for the campaign in my
Oh,
Euless
wow.
City Council run, and she drew a picture of me and then put the dates of early voting and all that locations as well. So they've been really, really engaged. They've made phone calls. Like my parents have made phone calls in Gujarati, Urdu, and other languages, so that way they can get their own kind of community out to vote. My
Yeah.
mom has cooked food for like everybody that would come to our home. trying to have these meetings and community meetings and whatnot. So everybody's contributed in their own way, and it's really special because anything that I've done, like going to law school, as you know, at SMU, right, in the evening program, like all made that conscious decision that this is what we're going to do together, and same thing that has been for the campaign.
Yeah, no, definitely. And let's kind of focus on that law school story, because I remember you mentioning it to me. So how did that look when you decided, after all these years, like, hey, I want to go to law school? Tell us a little bit about that and with the type of conversation that you had with your family at that time.
Yeah, so it was 2008, and we were in the middle of a Great Recession, and my daughter was just born, and I felt like I had like 4 gas stations, and I thought about my daughter would grow up one fine day and say, why are we selling alcohol and why are we selling cigarettes when we don't consume them ourselves? And I was like, I wouldn't be able to answer that question to her. And so I was like, okay, let me just change my career path. And so I networked with some people in my community and all that. And they said, why not law? And I was like, I've never, known any attorneys, don't know how am I going to bridge that gap. But, so I took the LSAT, and then I said, we had a family meeting. We sat down at the dinner table, and all of us, my 2 kids, my daughter was really young. But then my parents and my wife Nima, and we all said, okay, I'm thinking about doing this. Should we do this as a family, or should we not? And then everybody pitched in, and my dad said, I'll go to the stores, because we had 4 stores, and I would have to hire more employees. I said, I'm going to go to the stores more often. My mom said, I'll cook food and keep the kids. So and then Nima said she'll go to the stores as well to help out, with everything. So that's how I was able to go to law school in the evening program and really persevere for the 4 years.
Right. You mentioned something here in making this decision. You mentioned that you consulted with some members of the community, it sounds like. And the name of the show is Connections. And so, we're here to also kind of talk about how, our connections and how meaningful connections can help you. So what type of how did you approach people about this? I know sometimes people are a little bit hesitant or shy and they don't really want to discuss personal decisions, but how do you feel community and connections can support you in these types of life and career choices?
Yeah, I always believed after, getting coming of age that mentorship is so important. And I used to be mentors for others, and I was like, why? And it's so important to reach out to the community and saying, hey, here's what I'm thinking. And I told them, hey, look, I'm thinking about either continuing my gas station career or maybe doing a CPA. And again, attorney was not in my mind. So, but I think when you ask people for advice, you'd be so surprised that people are willing to share their advice based on their own experiences. So I didn't talk to one, I talked to like 10 people.
Okay.
One of my financial advisors, he sort of, why not law? It's about matter of asking. Not a lot of people ask. Take the time to really respect that community member and ask, hey, can I get your advice? Give me like 15 minutes of no, because right now we have so much distraction with their cell phones and other things going on. Hey, give me 15 minutes undivided. Let's meet at a coffee shop and let's discuss this. And face to face with eye contact, it's so important.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think that's a gem of an advice for people, right? Is that if you, really, we need to kind of get out of the fear of, oh, what is the person going to say if we ask them this question, or will they be, like that reluctance that we have, especially with people in our own community. So thanks for sharing that. I think that's really good insight. So kind of moving a little bit more towards present day, your campaign, from interviews to meetings to block walking, what tips do you have?
Yeah, I think one thing I would want to add.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, please go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to add that, that when you show your vulnerability to people, I think that's what makes us feel like, oh, we shouldn't show. But I think when you show that vulnerability, people really react in a very supportive way, as opposed to if you come in with a really big arrogance and saying, hey, I'm this, I'm that, and now give me advice. That doesn't work, right? Just being really downplaying and saying, look, I'm really genuinely like considering, advice from you, and I really respect you. And I'm in this spot where I could do so many different things. What do you recommend? I think that really sets them up for, for giving them really candid advice, especially in the community.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree with that so much. I think that, even for me personally, I had a similar journey to law school, but it was like that vulnerability is key, right? You need to make sure that you don't feel, that people are going to judge you and whatnot, because otherwise, you're not going to grow and you're not going to make that progress. Growth comes from that inner acceptance of, I need advice, I need support. So I 100% agree with what you're saying. So now kind of moving into a little mentorship question for you, since you just mentioned how you mentor for others. What tips do you have for other Pakistani Americans or anyone in general considering a run for local, state, or even national office?
Yeah, I would really love to mentor people, especially in the political career. I did this at a local level. I started off even before running for city council. I was serving on the park board in my city of Euless for 3 years before I ran for city council, and that's what I really recommend. Those that are thinking about running for office, serve the community in some nonprofit or local capacity, so that way you get to know the people. By serving on the Euless City Council, I got to know what the city looks like, who are the stakeholders, who are the city council members, who are the people in the sort of in the know, and that's how I was able to sort of get better edge with that. And so I think there are a lot of people in the community who may just think, hey, I'm just going to run for Congress, I'm just going to run for the state house, and I think I again not I don't want to discourage that, but I want to try to let them know that hey, better route would be to start at the local level and have some documentation or proof of that. Here's what I've done for the community. So when I would run for state representative position, this was nothing new that people didn't see me for the first time, right? That's how we were able to get more than 60% of the votes in the Democratic primary.
Right, absolutely. I mean, I think that makes sense, is that you want to establish the credibility and you also want to gain that experience. So, totally.
And one more thing I would say is that, help other campaigns, right? I'm not saying it for selfishly mine. It doesn't need to be mine, but any other campaign, I think, because there's so much to a campaign that people don't realize how this is, how it works. I didn't know, again, that's where I failed. So I'm just speaking from my experience as well, that I did not help anybody else before I ran for my own seat. And I learned so much in that process. I had to hire experts and pay them money because of the consulting and all that. But I think you'd learn a lot if you help somebody else's campaign.
Yeah, no, and then that's interesting. And I wasn't planning to ask you this, but since you mentioned it, what has been one of the most, I guess, unsuspecting parts of running a campaign? I mean, I think what I'm seeing when I, see other people running for office, it's like, it's kind of like managing a business. But like, what is one thing where when you were thinking of running, you were like, I never expected having to deal with this, in a campaign. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, the campaign is so public, right? It's like marketing on steroids, where every part of your life is out in the open. Anybody and everybody has access to that. And it comes with it's good side as well as bad side. So just trying to keep my kids away from a lot of this negative like Islamophobia and xenophobia. That's been a little challenging. Although I knew as a Muslim candidate running for office, it's not going to be easy, but I didn't realize how big of a toll. Like somebody literally told Nima on her face at the polls that you are a terrorist, and I don't want you to even live in my city of Euless. Get the hell out of this city, and just really, really negative things that I didn't expect people would share on face to face, right? I know a lot of people do on social media because it's easy to sit behind a computer and say hateful speech, but at the polls, face to face, that was a little grueling. And also the funds, like how much money is needed to run a campaign, I had no idea, right? Usually we don't think about, oh, we're doing public service, why do we need money? And sometimes it's difficult for people to understand, right? Our community does not really get too much involved. So it's difficult, to see how, but you drink the funds. I mean, we've spent $500,000 so far on this campaign. And I've been running for a year and a half now, and I feel like it's been a long journey, but again, God willing, on November 8th, it'll be all worth it.
Well, absolutely. Well, I mean, I do want to take a moment to just apologize. I mean, I think that what you just shared, it's awful, right? No one should have to deal with that type of hate, the Islamophobia, the bigotry. And I think this kind of even goes back to the previous question that I was asking about sacrifice. I mean, I know that we just had, I believe it was October 10th was Global Mental Health Awareness Day. And, campaigns can take a toll on someone's, mental health. And especially when you are attacked like this just for existing or just for wanting to help your community and give back, that's horrible. So lots of love to your family for everything that they're doing and all their sacrifices.
Thank you.
So my next question is a little bit on your strategy. So what are some creative ways that you and your team have thought of GOTV, which for those that don't know, GOTV is an acronym for Get Out the Vote. So how have you guys been reaching out to voters this election? Any new things and tips and tricks you've tried?
Yeah, we're trying to get our South Asian community, Muslim community in very creative ways. Like, for example, we're doing like Zumba with Salman. We're doing Saturdays with Salman at 10 a.m. every Saturday at a coffee shop. We're we're doing like, we've been planning this sort of Bollywood dance that we can, have people come in and sort of, do that at the polls, so that way we can have more involvement, because dance and music and all that, we're like, South Asians are great about. And so why not like mix politics with that and try to say, hey, look, this is so important. We need your support. And just like be on radio stations and this interview and just other folks that are just driving or doing something else that politics is not on their radar. Just trying to get them involved in like there's a lot of Pakistanis and Muslims that have said, oh, GOTV mean GEO TV, like our GOTV to get the vote part.
Okay, awesome. No, all that sounds amazing. I did know, I saw the Saturdays and the coffees, and I did not know about the Zumba. So I will definitely be checking that out. That sounds so fun. Salman, I wanted to ask you a question, and this is on a little bit more of a policy issue, and it's something that has unfortunately been making some headlines in our community. So October is also National Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And in light of the alarming rise in domestic homicides in our community, especially, how do you think society enables abuse, and how do you think that community leaders can take a stronger stand on this issue in our community?
Thanks for bringing that topic up, because it is really relevant and it's really important that we talk about it. I think we just need to have people really energized about one particular issue and then try to legislate, right? Like, so right now, like this past week, my future chief of staff from Austin actually came into Dallas, and we spoke about what policies, what kind of bills do we want to file, right? It's one thing to talk about on the campaign trail, I want to fight for this, but actually to file the bills that we really care about. And so this is like, I wouldn't have thought about that if like you or somebody else had not mentioned that to me, right? So it's so important to be able to talk to your elected officials. Right. And that's one thing that I realized on Euless City Council. So few of our community members actually reach out to their elected officials. Like, I was elected, first Muslim, first minority, first Pakistani, but how many Pakistanis or Muslims or South Asians reached out to me? I would say like 1%, right, of the entire, like I had more Caucasians and other like mainstream community members reach out to me because our campaign made national headlines. And so I felt like I was really serving everybody else, but not my own community, because they would not reach out to me, right? So I think that's one thing that, this we need to talk about where the shelters are. And this also plays into the mind, sort of the mental health awareness as well, because there's so much mental abuse that goes through that, and that sometimes goes unreported. And, just we need to research more and have the facts that support all or like the policies that we want to make. Like, I did not realize that 85% of mental, or not, but the domestic violence are women, right? 15% are men. And so there's so much that, we can do in order just to promote awareness, and then have policies that can really back with laws. But keep mentioning that. And I would just say, like, keep talking to elected officials, because then I'll talk about to other elected officials, and that's when change will happen.
Absolutely. No, I think that's a really good takeaway. And I'm glad that you shared that insight, that you're saying when you were on city council, like, you rarely heard from your own community. And I'm wondering if some of that might just be even a lack of training or a lack of understanding of the process. Like, how do we approach, and that is definitely something I think community leaders can help with as well, is letting our community know is that, this is how, regardless of who the official is, right? Whether it's you, or even if it's, not a Muslim, but like, we should feel empowered to go to our city council officials and ask them questions that are impacting our day-to-day lives.
Yeah, I was talking to one of the campaign, managers, and he said, how many people, like, if you were running a business, would you not have a cell phone number of your employees? And I was like, yes, obviously I would, right? And he's like, but what is that related to the campaign? He's like, well, you'll be a public servant, so you are actually an employee of the people. Should the people not have your cell phone number? I was like, absolutely, that makes so much sense, right? But even after having the cell phone number, how many people will reach out? That's my question, right? So I think you're right. I mean, we need to train, right? It's like how we learn a habit of voting every single election. We also need to have a habit of reaching out to your elected official at all levels, local, county, state, and federal government. So that way, because that's one thing that really drives us as elected officials, is if we hear from our constituents, we are so thrilled to see, okay, this is what they want, because we're there to represent them. Like I said, we're their employees, right?
Right. That's such an amazing, response, and I think that that whole spirit and that attitude of being a servant leader, it's something that I actually spoke with another one of my guests on a previous show about, and it might also be a little bit of the fact that we don't see a lot of that servant leadership in politics back home, possibly.
Mm,
Without getting into any details, so it could really just be that our community isn't, like we mentioned, trained.
mm,
And so maybe that attitude towards political leadership in other communities, right, back home, could be that I am entitled to this office, right, because my father or my grandfather was a leader, right?
right.
And this is something that is so different for the Pakistani American diaspora. What do you think about that?
No, I mean, and that's why we are not very politically engaged to begin with, right? Like,
Yeah.
but I don't remember my parents going to vote in Pakistan because they
Mhm.
thought it was a very dangerous place to go, right? Like, you
Oh,
wouldn't want to go, and there's so much drama that goes on there, and they're seeing who you vote for. Like, it's so difficult. And I'm not saying it's happening right now. I don't know what's happening right now in Pakistan,
right,
but at the
right.
end of the day, our policies and our habits are shaped by what happens back, where we come from. And where we come from, politics is looked as a taboo or corrupt profession. And that's why you don't see a lot of Pakistanis running for office, right? Like, how many people, like, we have such a huge community. And
Yeah.
that's why it's fascinating. I did not know this when I was running for the state house, but I'll be
Mhm.
the first South Asian, first Pakistani,
Mm.
first Muslim ever elected in the state's history, right? So that
Yeah.
is huge. In 2022, we
Mm.
have Pakistanis have been coming to this country for more than 100 years now, right? And
Absolutely. Yeah.
right now we're getting first Pakistani elected in the state of Texas, where we do so much business. Like, if you take the top 100 business community leaders in the state of Texas,
Hmm.
I guarantee you there's a Pakistani there,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
Guarantee you there's a Muslim there. We're
Sure.
really good in business. We're really good in maths, or the STEM, education, like
Yeah.
all the other things. But where are we in terms of politics? And that's one of my passions, to really build the bench and a
Mm.
pipeline. And maybe you run for office. There's so many, and especially women of our community. I think that's one
Oh,
thing I want to really
yeah.
do: women empowerment, and try to really get our community women to come out, because we need to show the other, like, outside non-Muslim world that women are not oppressed. Our women is a great say behind every successful man there's a woman. I say beside every successful man or woman there is another opposite, gender, right? Or whatever. So I
Mhm.
think that's really important to articulate those values that we have, that we keep it inside our heart. But then, because we don't say it enough, other people can say, oh, your women are oppressed. Absolutely not. It's the other way around. We respect, like, my mom, my Nima, and then my
Yeah.
daughter. Like, all three of
Yeah.
them
All three.
lead our family. Like, without them, family would not exist.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, like you mentioned, you have.
Sorry, I don't know if you lost me.
No, no, sorry. That's okay. It was a little bit of a lag, but we can work it out. So, I mean, I agree. I think that there's, you have women in all three generations that, you support. And I think going back to what you mentioned about, this cultural, I guess, preference to STEM
Bias.
education, right? And biases. And so we don't want, we're not pushing our children to be leaders. We're not pushing our children to go to law school. We want, beta beti jo hai doctor ya engineer bas banao,
Mhm.
because and God forbid, if it's a woman who wants to be a lawyer, like, oh my God, like that's just a whole like red flag. My friends and I joke about this all the time. So yeah, thank you for bringing that up. So Salman, I have one last question before the show ends for today. So as a parent to two teenagers, what kind of a world do you want to leave for them and for future generations?
Yeah, it's a great question, very philosophical question. I don't know how, I hope it's practical, but I really want a world where people are not discriminated against based on religion, race, age, ethnicity, sexual orientation. There's so many things that we have biases in our minds, and we discriminate against that on a daily basis. If we can have equality for all, I think that would be a greater, as well as to animals. I mean, we're so cruel to animals as well. The planet Earth is sort of, we're taking all the resources and not leaving anything for the next generation. And I feel like my father has taught me that leave the planet better than what you found it. And so if we can incorporate these values, I think I think that would be a really good world where I can say, I mean, I can die peacefully in my and, in that world.
Thank you. That's great. And I mean, I know a lot of this can sound idealistic, but we definitely want to make sure that we convey that message, right? So no matter how idealistic it sounds, we have seen progress from generation to generation, and the things that you and I have been able to do today, as you recall, our forefathers, have not been able to do that. So we're definitely recognizing that progress. Well, thank you so much, Salman, for doing your part in getting our Pakistani American community to the polls. For those of you watching in Texas, early voting begins on Monday, October 24th, and it goes through Friday, November 4th. And election day is on Tuesday, November 8th. So we definitely hope to see everyone at the polls. Thank you all so much for tuning in. We'll be back in 2 weeks. Allah Hafiz. Assalamu alaikum.